I think when you're the director behind Katamari Damacy, objectively the greatest game ever made, you should just kind of have free reign to make whatever you want. Whether he's had that liberty to do everything exactly the way he wants it or not, you can't say that since making Katamari, director Kaito Takahashi hasn't gone on to make games not many other people would. Nobi Nobi Boy and Watama are definitely his most notable games since working on the first couple of Katamari games, both of them having concepts that might even be stranger than rolling around a spiky ball picking up things. He's also sort of indirectly responsible for Slack, like the professional messaging service. Seriously, Slack was born from a chat tool in a now defunct browser-based MMO he worked on called Glitch. Guy's had a weird career. And now there's 2 a T, a narrative-focused game that continues that lineage of strangeness, while also potentially being his most approachable game. The concept is pretty simple. You're a freshly turned 13 teenager, attempting to navigate the daily complexities of life, from getting out of bed and getting ready for school, to suddenly realising you can fly when you spin real fast. That second one is because you've probably already noticed your character, who you get to name, is constantly in the shape of the letter T. Get it? 2 a T? It's impossible for them to lower their arms, meaning it looks like they're constantly T-posing, that thing game models do in their base state. It'd be very easy to imagine that the core concept came from Takahashi wondering to himself, what if there was a game where your character is constantly T-posing? No idea if that was the case, but that'd be my best guess. While a fun concept, there's another side to it that I think could have easily been ignored, but thankfully it wasn't. In the real world, being constantly stuck in a T-pose would be considered a disability. This is apparent almost from the first minute of the game. After an entire TV show opening, which we're gonna come back to because this thing fucking slaps, and a nightmare sequence where you get to make your character, we'll come back to this too, they wake up needing to go to the bathroom. Something like this is generally taken for granted by non-disabled people, right? You don't think about it all too often because why would you? For the protagonists, this isn't a task they can accomplish on their own. Their trusty pet dog has to help them out, who, I just named Dog because that was the first thing that came up and I just thought it was really funny. This is a Takahashi game we're talking about, so even relieving yourself was a little bit playful, as you button mash your way through it, accompanied by sounds of stress and all sorts. That playfulness carries through to the rest of the morning routine too. Your bathroom has a special faucet to help you wash your face, you've got an extra long toothbrush to brush your teeth, an equally long spoon to eat your favourite brand of cereal with. Clearly some thought was put into the small ways a disabled person can be accommodated to mitigate the stresses of daily life tasks. They're also suitably gamey. You need to use the analog sticks to move your arms to grab the cereal box or rinse your mouth. It's more than just press button do thing, the controller is an extension of your character's body, and you use many parts of the controller throughout the game, a recurring trait of Takahashi's games. But what's the actual game, I hear you snarkily snip at me? Well, a lot of this kind of thing. It's walking around a tiny open world, it's taking part in a variety of food eating contests, it's about living life in an odd little town where somehow things are getting odder. I'd say that the core mechanic is probably the fact that you can spin your body real fast, letting you fly about the place. Another instance of using the controller slightly more physically in that you have to spin the right analog stick to whip up enough energy to send you sky high. There is also just the option to make this a button press as an accessibility setting, something I'm quite glad the game has given the themes at play. Even then, there's not really much you can do with this mechanic. It helps you to navigate the town somewhat, making exploring it easier. First and foremost, 2 a T is interested in telling the story, with mechanics kind of coming not as an afterthought, more of a little interactive bonus. Admittedly, the gameplay first crowd might find it a little bit dull in this sense. This is definitely something that'll appeal more to the Boku no Natsuyasumi fans, I think. You'll spend a lot of your time hanging out and doing quick little mini-games. These range from math quizzes to trying to outrun a train, to making potions that can dye your skin fun colours. The pacing is a little odd too, in part because of its episodic format. Don't think Life is Strange when I say episodic, think kids' TV shows that run no longer than 11 minutes a pop, designed in a way to maximise attention. Here that's dragged out to about 45 minutes an episode, but you know, it's a game, games are longer. Because of that, things aren't always resolved in ways you might expect, or at a speed that might feel unnatural to fellow late 20-somethings, but right as rain to a kid. That isn't going to be for everyone, sure, but I think it's fine. My favourite aspect of the game being divided up into episodes is those aforementioned openings and endings. They're just so charming. The opening song is literally about how your character finds things like not being able to put on their PJs by themselves difficult, and not being able to understand why they are the shape of a T, with the ultimate literal message being you are the perfect shape. It's energetic and upbeat and catchy and such an earworm. I found myself constantly singing it since I finished the game. There's a real sense of, yeah, the episode is starting, let's get excited. Then there's the ending, which is sung by dog-damn Rebecca Sugar of all people, about an anthropomorphic giraffe who runs different food stores around town. This shit's delightful. Sugar's voice is so naturally comforting, so it works really well as a bridge between one episode to the next. Any stress you might feel is washed away with those soothing saxophone tones and jazz lounge piano grooves. As short as both songs are, I can see myself playing them on repeat pretty easily. Why does this mushroom make me want to vie for my father's affection? Despite a lot of simplicity gameplay-wise, I really loved hanging out in this town. I'm always a sucker for beach towns, they just feel like home to me, so it got off on the right foot there. It's also just weird in the way small towns often are. There's bespoke clothing shops run by even more animals, each shop in the shape of whatever it is they're selling. Maybe you'll take a trip out to the lighthouse that rests on a massive seashell on a bike ride with your friends, not quite understanding why you're crying at a sunset. Perhaps you'll take a quick train ride to just get somewhere quicker. I really love how this refuses to be convenient mechanically as well. You will stop at every station, deciding each time whether you want to get off or not. Of course the train is stopping, it doesn't just run for you. There's lots of little details like this to get lost in too. Takahashi is obviously Japanese, so he takes his cues from how Japanese schools work. That means things like swapping your shoes for indoor ones when you get there, a cultural aspect Japanese kids wouldn't think twice about, but I imagine something a lot of non-Weeby players might find slight confusion in. It's all just nice. Okay, well, mostly nice. There are a couple of aspects that I'd maybe wish were done slightly differently. The smaller of the two is that, in those food eating contests, there are other scores you have to beat set up by other townspeople, the top score always coming from a character named Maro, who is chubby. On the one hand, I don't really love this being a chubby person myself, one who does also love and struggle with food. But on the other, I'm glad that he isn't reduced to solely this stereotype. In fact, I don't think the food contests even come up in dialogue with Maro at any point. The main thing you get to know about his character is that he's really into shoes, so he's not entirely one-dimensional. I'd still prefer if they hadn't done the ranking thing that way all the same though. The other is a touch more complicated. Maro is one of 3 characters that initially bullies your character, the 3 of them specifically bullying you for the fact that you are constantly the shape of a T. Ultimately, this bullying doesn't go on for very long, as your character saves one of them in an accident, leading them to apologise. Your character does have complicated feelings about this, but decides to forgive them, and in turn they become friends. I'm not against a bully redemption arc type story. It's important that we recognise people can change. I just think it kind of gets brushed over too quickly, maybe? The general lesson of bullying bad is there and it's important. It just would have been nice if the aforementioned speedy pacing maybe spread this one out a bit. There are good lessons to be had though. I'm going to try and not spoil the ending too much here, but there is a character that shows up later on who wants you and everybody else in the town you reside in to fit into the mold of what they think is the perfect shape. This, to be clear, is some pretty fashy ideology. It espouses ideas of conformity, of life being better when everyone is the same, claiming that we wouldn't have wars or disagreements if this was the case. This, to be clear again, couldn't be more fucking wrong. And the game knows that too, pushing back against these ideas in a way that feels very important for kids to see and hear. Something that's a bit underappreciated these days within the games industry is a severe lack of kids games too. Like seriously, can you name many that aren't based on pre-existing series? I mean, Nintendo obviously still make kid-friendly games. That's a majority of what they do, even if a large portion of their player base is made up of adults. The industry is very focused on teens and upwards predominantly. Kids tend to be a bit of an afterthought. Yeah, okay, sure, they get a shite like My Friend Peppa Pig and Bluey the video game. Plus there's the odd Lego game here and there, but you just don't find much for really young kids. E for everyone kind of vibes, even PG is what I'm talking about. Games that are safe from predatory practices like those you find in Roblox. Hell, you barely get games like Crash or Spyro anymore either, at least not on a big scale. PlayStation used to be pretty great for kids games, or at least kid-friendly games, up until the PS3 era. I'm thinking the first Jak and Daxter, the earlier Ratchet & Clank's, Little Big Planet, and even if they were crap, there were a plethora of movie tie-ins that many of us do have fond memories of, slop or not. You don't even get those these days. This all often leaves indies to pick up the pieces that AAA devs don't find particularly profitable. It's why games like 2AT feel so valuable to me, even if they're not perfect. As I spoke about earlier, 2AT's TV show-like format really helps it to feel equipped to get kids engaged. The game's short, it took me about 6 hours to beat, and it's made up of 8 episodes, all of which are pretty easy to digest. There's that banging opening and ending we spoke about too to help you get excited and thusly cool off afterwards. And the main character, who you can design to look like an approximation of you if you like, talks directly to you, the player, reminding me of shows like Dora the Explorer. It's not an edutainment game, but there is an argument to be made that it is educative entertainment. I don't think an adult is going to learn any massive life lessons. For a young'un though, there's foundational points like bullying is bad and you're perfect the way you are, that you find in kids media pretty broadly, just not so much in games. Again, to be clear, I'm talking generally younger kids here. If your 12-year-old doesn't at least know that bullying kids is bad, I would consider picking up at least one book called You Failed as a Parent, What Next? These lessons really are entry-level stuff. They're also just meaningful to young children because, well, they just don't know anything about the world yet. Games have become more and more of an important part of people's lives. It's inevitable that kids are going to be interested in them if their parents play them, so it's important we have approachable options for them too. 2AT is not a complicated game by any means. For a majority of it, you don't have any control over the camera, and all of the inputs are pretty simple. There's not even any punishment, so to speak, for getting things wrong, which honestly is a great lesson for kids too. We shouldn't be punishing them for getting things wrong. We should allow them to mess up and give them room to try again. What better a medium to learn this in than video games? One that's inherently repetitive by nature. Plus, I just think it's good to let disabled kids see themselves in a game, which, as a point about the game's character creator, this too lets kids see themselves in the game's protagonist, right down to the fact they can wear any clothing they like, with no particular gender assigned to them. It's neat, and it makes it much more broadly relatable, doing so in a way that only games can do. There are some games that feature disabled characters, but very few where the main character is one, and while writing this review I struggled to find any that feature a disabled child protagonist. The only one I could find is a game called Beyond Eyes, where you play as a blind 10-year-old girl, and that isn't legally available anymore it seems. So I'd love to know if anyone else can tell me about other games with young disabled protagonists. One thing I also want to make clear is that I'm not trying to come at this from there's a whole underserved market out there, or you corpo vultures can fuck off with thinking about kids in such a way. I'm saying all this because it's good for kids to have age-appropriate media that is approachable and informative, and on the games front, artistically, they are being underserved. 2AT can serve that need, I think. There's just such a strong charm to it despite its flaws, a sense of real amongst the surreal. Your character struggles are taken seriously, even when the game itself isn't always serious. A difficult thing to balance and one that I think generally works. It is not a game that is likely to blow your mind, but it could be a game that means everything to your own child, or a friend's kid, or any other child in your life. Games don't always have to be for us, down to a T. They can be things to share with those around us who might find more value in it. And for that purpose, I think 2AT fits pretty perfectly. Thank you for watching my review of 2AT. I never really know what to expect or take away from Kaito Takahashi's games, and I feel quite surprised with my own resolutions here, honestly. In terms of things I'm working on, I should be making a video about Ena Dream Barbecue next, which is quite a bit of a departure mood-wise from 2AT. It'll be a bit more than just about Ena itself. I think it should be pretty good, we'll see. I also know that YouTube doesn't really like it when you diverge from your set thing, but also I'm just starting, so hopefully I can kind of do what I want. And by that I mean in July I'm kind of hoping to get out a video about an anime movie. Again, we'll see how that goes. The point is I'm trying to work on a lot of things. Anyway, kiss on the forehead for you, and goodbye.